Presented from the Aishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
Hello and welcome back to Aftermarket News. You are watching or listening to the Business Casual podcast. With me today is Joe Delorme. He is the Director of Product Management for Dorman Products. How are you doing today, Joe?
Fantastic. How are you, Emma?
Good, good. Now, you know, this is one of the earlier episodes of our new podcast, and so we're so excited that you were able to join us. And today we're going to talk about what you look for in a product, what makes a product effective, essentially, and how you make those effective products so that people actually want to purchase them. So I think some people will be pretty curious. So that being said, when it comes to products, what are some of the immediate things that you look for when trying to start creating a successful product?
Sure. I mean, there's definitely a lot, right? I mean, the widget itself is obviously one thing, right? That's what you're touching. That's the tangible item. You know, in auto parts, it is the part itself. However, to be successful in product, you got to differentiate, right? What I look for, what my team looks for, is to be able to provide a solution. Right. So can I save you time? Can I save you money? Is there something that we could do reverse engineering? Can we fix something? Can we have longevity on that? So we always look and we approach every angle to see, is there something more than just giving you this widget to install in your vehicle? And I think that's important, right? That's the value add. And that's what makes the automotive aftermarket great and different.
And one thing we were talking about that makes it unique to the automotive aftermarket is you are looking at these parts that are coming from OEMs, and you actually have the chance to look at like weaker points in them and maybe even improve upon them. So talk a little bit about the creativity and how that comes about.
Sure, absolutely. Nothing bad to say about the OE manufacturers, but at the end of the day, they're responsible for building vehicles, right? We, on the flip side, are responsible for building parts. So not to say all parts are bad, but there may be something where it's tested, the durability, it's a limited window of durability that they put on. The vehicle's running, pass all their tests, and it goes out the door. However, we come in outside of that warranty, right? We come in after 50,000 miles. We come in year 4, year 5, second, third, fourth owner, where maybe a problem or an issue, premature failure, was not able to be identified at that time. So that's where we really come in, and we're able to look at that and say, okay, we're seeing a lot of these failures come through, and it's a common area or it's a common thread. What can we do to potentially fix that, right? Is it a material upgrade? There's a lot of things that will be coming from the OEs that are plastic. And there's a reason for that, right? They're a little bit cheaper to produce, right? They're lighter weight, right? We're looking at fuel economies and efficiencies there, but plastic just doesn't last all that long. So if we can look at that and say, instead of it being plastic, can we upgrade that and produce an aluminum part in place of that? That's something we can upgrade, and that's something that's going to last on the vehicle, that much longer. So something as simple as a material change and something as complex as a complete redesign, maybe internally. But that's where our niche is, and that's our job to figure out. So that makes it fun, and it makes it definitely being able to differentiate ourselves.
And when we were chatting, we were talking about what makes a part the most effective, and I thought you might have some deep secret or clue, but you really said it comes down to the innovation of the team. So how vital is it to get that right group of people working in your department?
I mean, that's huge, right? People are our biggest asset for sure. And really that's the people. It's not the part itself fixing itself, right? So it's the product team, it's the engineers, being able to dissect, right? So and have a passion for it, right? It's different, right? Auto parts in the auto industry is different, and maybe that's why I really love it, because there's just a lot of passion that takes place, right? And I think, I've always said, I joked actually most recently this week with a colleague of mine saying, we're not surgeons, right? So the fate of people's lives are not in our hands. However, transportation is very important, right? So we want to make sure, I have a mother, right? Everybody has a mom, maybe you have a sister, an aunt, a brother, a grandparent. You want to make sure when they get in their vehicle and they're going from point A to point B, whatever that is, they're able to get there and they have confidence and they're safe in doing so. So it takes people to really, hunker down and want to do that and want to better the product. So the team at Dorman is fantastic, and I'm fortunate to have the team I have.
And I was really curious about R&D, and something you told me was, well, you could pay unlimited funds for R&D and unlimited funds for the product, but At the end of the day, what you need is a part that people can afford to put in their car to fix it.
Yeah, that's such an important part, right? Because it's, I feel like you could figure things out, right? If you had unlimited capital, you had unlimited time, you could figure anything out. I truly believe that. But when you're limited based on, the market pricing, what the market's willing to spend, and obviously, we're aftermarket. So the OE dealer is always that option. So if we can't compete with the part from the OE dealer, we really have no right to win. So it's very important to have those guardrails to say, not only do we have to produce this part, especially if we're adding innovation to it, but we have to be within the parameters of price and time too, right? First, the market's important, especially in this industry. There's, just like any other industry, tons of competitors, right? Overly saturated. So you got to be first with a good part to win sometimes. Shelf space is real estate that's not going to expand, right? So once you're there, that's battle number one. Staying there is battle number two, but you got to get there. You got to get there first.
Presented from the Aishin Broadcast Studio at Babcox Media.
Absolutely. And that's where those creative minds really come into play when it comes to the problem solving part of it. All right. So the other thing that I really learned about you recently is that you are a car enthusiast. So tell me a little bit. Obviously, not everyone in the aftermarket loves cars 24/7. They love working with them. They love being a part of this industry. But you take it to a next level. So tell me how you started loving cars and kind of where that stands right now.
Yeah, we could talk for a long time there. I definitely geek out when it comes to everything cars. To be completely honest with you, I kind of fell into the automotive aftermarket. Growing up, my dad was an enthusiast. We were always tinkering. We always had project cars, always going to car shows. My first job was in a service station, changing oil, doing brakes. And then, I spent some time behind parts counters in different service departments and absolutely loved it. And then I thought, well, it's now coming to an end, right? I'm going to college, the automotive side of things from a profession is kind of behind me. I thought it was over. So shortly after college, I started some, first big boy jobs in banking, which was absolutely brutal. And the automotive aftermarket, I was recruited in and it found me. And I was just like, wow, like this is insane. I get to do like what I love and you're going to pay me for it. Right. So it was very fascinating for me. And for me, it made work that much more fun and somewhat easier, right? So I didn't really have to study for the test. Like I kind of knew a lot of the answers because I was familiar with the parts going into it, right? So I knew, if you told me a chassis component or engine component, I knew what that was. So it just made it that much more comfortable, to hit the ground running.
And as a director of product management, when you go out and you're talking to clients and things like that, how does being a car enthusiast actually help you do that?
Yeah, I like to think it's an advantage, right? I think, speaking with a lot of technicians and shop owners along my journey, I think it adds a layer of confidence and respect, right? Like I respect what they do. I know it's not easy. I'm not going to oversimplify it, but when we're speaking shop, right, we're speaking the same language. It's not I'm going in, I'm saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, or I'm going to, make this, fancy widget. Like I don't really care. That doesn't help me, right? So really understanding automotive at a deeper level than just working for an automotive parts company, I think definitely helps and gives me, quote unquote, street cred a little bit when speaking to the professional technician as well as the shop owner.
Do you think it helps you identify pain points and things like that because you're able to kind of empathize with them as they say they're having trouble with X, Y, or Z, and you can go in and try to help fix that?
Yeah, I definitely think it streamlines a lot of that, right? Like I said, I every chance I get, I'm tinkering in the garage, I'm working on, my vehicles. So sometimes I could definitely understand where they're coming from. Like, oh, I ran into that same thing, or maybe I run into something on the weekends and I take it back to my team and go, this was a real sticking point. Like this took me an extra hour, on the job than it should have, and it would be really helpful if we included maybe this hardware in the box, or maybe if we, adjusted the instructions or directions to dictate and get around that obstacle. So I definitely think I think it helps for sure. And I'm a big fan of like field visits, right? I enjoy going out. I enjoy spending time in the shops, seeing what's going on. And those technicians are fantastic because they provide so much feedback, right? If you ask them like, how can I make your life and your job easier? They'll talk until you tell them to stop. So it's fantastic feedback. And it helped me help you type of aspect. And it really gives us a jump start on certain things, or gives us an opportunity to see things that we may have not found, or it would have taken us longer to find.
So I have to ask, I'm a journalist, I'm naturally curious. What are you tinkering on right now in your garage?
Yeah, so I'm a big, old school BMW fan. The E36 platform, so like early 90s is really where I get really excited. So, I have a few of those right now. I actually have a E36 wagon that was not available in the States, so I imported that from Germany, and I'm working through that right now. I keep telling myself I'm not going to do anything engine swap wise, but I think that's on the docket right now.
Okay, so you're not just doing little cosmetic fixes. You're getting in there and you're changing quite a bit up.
Yeah, it's never finished, right? Which is kind of dangerous. And always looking for the next step, either the modification, appearance modification, performance modification. But yeah, definitely, I get my hands dirty whenever I can.
So, Joe, on this podcast, we do a Your Aftermarket Top 3. It's basically what keeps you around, what keeps you invested in our business. And I'm curious what yours are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. There's definitely a lot, but for me, I think the top three would definitely be the people, as I mentioned earlier. People in this industry are fantastic, right? They just make you want to wake up and go to work, right? Very competitive, always wanting to win, more than just the 9 to 5. I think people are definitely that. Car enthusiast, we talked about, makes my job a lot more fun, a lot easier. And wants me to what I want to continue to show up for that reason. And I think the last one I'd have to say is probably just the impact. I think the automotive industry has such an impact on the economy. Being able to get to soccer practice, to and from work. We discussed earlier, like family trips. I'm going to be going out to Ohio, your neck of the woods, to visit a friend over the summer. So just being able to give alternative options, giving access to more affordable options to keep our car on the road, and just have the confidence when you get in there, wherever your A to B is, you get there confidently and safely.
Absolutely. I do think that the ability to get around safely is something we don't think about until, hey, a car part breaks and we need one immediately. So that's a really important point about our industry. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you guys so much for watching.